I know it's been quite a while since I made a video either on this channel or on Videoclerks. If you follow both of these channels, you've realized that I've kind of been on an extended hiatus for a while. I will say that in the Videoclerks channel, we have recorded. We still have done the show at the public access studio in my hometown. I just haven't had time to edit and upload since I've been busy trying to get graduated from college. So now that's happened and summer has began, and now I have all the time in the world to put up new videos, including the reviews from the Videoclerks and more content on this channel as well, including DVD updates. I'll continue with my series of my whole damn collection. A little update there. I had a contest going on where I was giving away a poster and a DVD, and I was unable to give my prizes away because I didn't have enough entries. I only had one entry, and all it would have took is two, but I only had one entry, and I didn't think that that's much of a contest if somebody just wins by default because they were the only one who entered. So thank you to that one person. I'm sorry I don't have your name available, or else I would thank you by name. But thank you for entering and putting forth the effort to do a little bit of a review or whatever for that contest. But let me know in the comments below why you weren't interested in possibly entering, or what happened there, or what could make the contest better, because I still have a ton of posters I'd like to give away, and I would be willing to even give away some DVDs as well. So keep that in mind for that whole damn collection series. But for my return back to VC Cassidy, I wanted to show some stuff that I bought in the last, well, what has it been, like a month and a half since I've done one of these videos? Something like that. And I have quite a bit here of new stuff. I have old stuff. I have stuff I've transferred from DVD to Blu Ray. The first thing I want to show are my DVDs. Most of this is Blu Ray, but I did purchase some DVDs, and this is the Roger Corman Drive-In Classics. It's a 4-disc set that comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 movies. And it's a lot of his older stuff, and it's not just stuff that he produced, but all of these are movies that he directed, and a lot of these are from the 50s and 60s, so it's kind of that classic Corman era. And there's a lot of movies on here I've been meaning to see, but I've never had the opportunity, and this was $4.99 at Best Buy, so I figured what the hell. But we have Bucket of Blood and The Terror, the original Little Shop of Horrors, Swamp Woman, She Gods of the Shark Reef, a lot of good sci-fi camp classics from the Corman factory early on. So I'll be excited to get to these with the summer ahead of me. Here I have The Secret of NIMH, which of course is the famous directorial debut of Don Bluth, who originally started as a Disney animator. He moved out on his own and started his own studio where he made kind of a darker answer to Disney, a slightly more adult-oriented stuff, but still made for family viewing. But his stuff is always just a little bit darker, a little bit more, has a lot to do with kind of death and the afterlife and black magic, and those kind of themes creep up in a lot of his movies, or like social realism, as like in the American Tale. And this is one of my favorite movies that he did, and I love a lot of the Bluth movies, but I don't buy them very often because you can hardly ever find them in full screen, or I mean, sorry, in widescreen. All you can ever find is full screen. But this one is a 2-disc set that comes with both the full screen and the widescreen, and a lot of special features, so I figured this was the way to go for The Secret of NIMH. It's a hard one to find. You usually only see the 1-disc full screen, but this is pretty great. I bought a couple DVDs from the store Big Lots. I don't know if that is a national chain or if it's just sort of a regional chain, but I love Big Lots. You can get a lot of great DVD deals. Of course, they don't do a lot of Blu Ray, unfortunately, and I am moving away from DVD, but they have a lot of times you can find really weird stuff that you just can't find anywhere else, and they always have it for really cheap, $3.99, $4.99, that kind of price range. And I bought a couple. I have Talk to Her by Pedro Almodovar, and I think it's widely considered one of his best films. I think it was nominated for both Academy Awards and Golden Globes. And I haven't watched it yet. I'm actually pretty new to Almodovar. I've watched The Skin I Lived In and loved it a lot, so I'm going to work my way back. And normally I don't blind buy all that often, but it was such a good deal that I didn't mind doing it, and I thought this is probably a sure bet. So a movie I have seen and really liked a lot, and it's been on my itinerary to buy for a while. I was able to find it Big Lots for $3.99, really cheap on DVD, and that is An Education by Lone Scherfig. Who I think she comes out of the Dogma School, Von Trier world. But I really like this movie a lot. Star-making role for, of course, Carey Mulligan, who's kind of playing this teenager growing up in the British 60s, and she falls in love with an older guy played by Peter Sarsgaard, who is kind of leading her astray from the academic world. And it's a really great kind of coming-of-age story. I really love this movie a lot, and I think it's directed really well. And of course, Carey Mulligan is just wonderful in this movie. So I was excited to get this. Here's one I got from Best Buy for, I think, something like 13 bucks. And that's Animal Kingdom, which is a Australian gangster flick. They call it sort of the Australian Goodfellas. It isn't quite as rock and roll as Goodfellas, but it's a really good movie, and it's really well directed and kind of a slow burn, intense type of thriller. And Joel Edgerton, you may recognize from Warrior, he's in this, as well as Guy Pearce, who plays a cop, and it's just a really good kind of creeping, dark sort of thriller. This is one that I upgraded to because it was really cheap at Walmart. I think it was like 10 bucks or less. So I figured for one of my all-time favorite movies, might as well upgrade to the Blu Ray and save a little space on my shelf. And that is Sin City, directed by Robert Rodriguez. This came out back, I think, in 2005, 2006. Really love this movie a lot. Very stylish. I think it's Rodriguez's by far his best movie. Not his most definitive movie. Stylistically, it's pretty different from a lot of his work, other than it's ultra-violent and kind of exploitive. But it's of course based on the popular comic book series by Frank Miller, who kind of co-directed this movie. But it's all done mostly on green screen, but he finds this really interesting style to direct this movie, using these harsh blacks and whites and lighting techniques, and kind of borrowing ideas from film noir, but taking it to kind of a much further sort of comic book cartoon sort of extreme. And he has these bright flashes of color that come in every once in a while. And I just think this is just a terrific movie. I think when I first saw it, I said it's Dick Tracy meets Pulp Fiction, and that would be an accurate description if you've never seen it before. It's kind of pulp noir in the best way possible. This movie I bought from a pawn shop for relatively cheap. I have a pawn shop in town that they charge $26 for 4 Blu-rays, and if you're upgrading stuff, that's probably the best way to go, because you can almost never find anything that cheap. And it's the movie Scanner Darkly by Richard Linklater. I've kind of been going through a Linklater phase lately, going back and watching a lot of my favorite movies that he made, and I had this movie in mind as one that I wanted to buy in Blu-ray, and I was able to find it. Just rewatched it recently. I haven't seen this movie in quite a while. I played it at my college when it first came out back in '06, and I hadn't seen it since, and I remember being kind of weird, a little bit confusing, but I liked it. Watching it again, it makes slightly more sense, even though it is pretty bizarre. It's based on a Philip K. Dick novel. If you don't know who that is, he is a science fiction writer with a lot of movies, including Blade Runner and Minority Report, are based on his work. But this is a little bit different. It's a little bit more down to earth to some extent. There isn't like robots or it isn't as futuristic, but it takes place more in the near future where a drug has kind of hit the streets, and it's all sort of a science fiction allegory for the war on drugs. But specifically, there's some great performances in here. The story itself is a little meandering, but it's worth watching just for the performances from Robert Downey Jr. and Woody Harrelson alone. They really make this movie, and it's also very, very stylish. This came out around the same time as Sin City. I remember seeing a trailer for one at the other. And it's done in this rotoscoping style where they film everything like a normal movie and then they go back and animate on top of it. You may have seen some commercials they did like that. But it's and they haven't made a lot of movies like that. Only Linklater did this in Waking Life in this rotoscoping style. And some people don't like it very much, but I think it really adds a lot to the movie because it is a pretty talky movie. It's almost the screenplay is almost like a stage play to some extent, how much dialogue there is. And I think if it had been shot regularly, it could have been very boring. But because it is so stylish in the way it looks, it kind of keeps you captivated. As well as those great performances. I think this is really kind of a defining performance for Robert Downey Jr. as far as like his return after his drug problems. Another one I bought from that same pawn shop, and another science fiction movie, is Gatica, written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who did most recently did In Time. He's also a writer for the Truman Show, and he's going to be writing and directing the Stephenie Meyers science fiction book, The Host, and I would have no interest in a Stephenie Meyers book after all the Twilight hurrah, but because Andrew Niccol's name is on there, and I know he knows sci-fi really well, I would actually be a little bit more interested in seeing The Host than any of the Twilight movies. But yeah, this is an interesting movie. It takes place in the future. It has to do a lot with gene stuff, kind of the fear of the Human Genome Project that was still being developed at the time that the movie was made. Of course, the project is completed now, but the idea is that in the future you can change your genes, you can basically genetically create perfect human beings, and so people who are born naturally don't have as many advantages in the workplace. And Ethan Hawke tries to sort of break away from this and sort of cheat the system, if you will. But it's an interesting movie and a really good science fiction movie, and very cerebral style, very Philip K. Dick style science fiction. So check that out if you haven't seen it. I haven't watched this on Blu Ray yet, but I'll be excited to see what it looks like. There's this thing going on with the Universal 100 anniversary line. A lot of these movies are movies in their library are coming out in these special editions, stuff that hasn't been on Blu Ray before. Of course, later this year they'll be releasing Jaws, and oh geez, there's a few others. E.T., I think, maybe. A lot of big titles coming out in Blu Ray now because of this 100th anniversary. I think American Graffiti and a few others have come out as well. And I've been taking advantage of this, and these are really good Blu Ray sets, come in kind of interesting packaging. I just bought these at Walmart, fairly cheap, I think 15 bucks each, maybe less. But I bought The Deer Hunter, starring Robert De Niro, mid-70s Oscar winner, really young performance there by Meryl Streep and Christopher Walken as well. And this is a really good kind of intense drama that takes place sort of during the post-war era of that time. There were a lot of movies like this in the mid-70s dealing with kind of post-traumatic stress and war is hell sort of ideas, of course, Apocalypse Now and later Platoon. And this was kind of, I think, maybe one of the first like it. Or this or Coming Home by Hal Ashby kind of came around the same time. But it's a good one. And Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is one of my favorite teen movies, directed by Amy Heckerling. And early screenplay by Cameron Crowe before he was a director. At that time, he had written a book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and because he was famously so young to be a journalist, he was able to actually infiltrate a high school as a student and take notes and be able to write this novel or write this expose about teenagers in the 80s. And it was made as a teen movie comedy. And this is a really good movie. If you watch it, you don't realize how old the movie actually is. I mean, it came out in '82. And it does feel very 80s, but I would say it feels more late 80s than early 80s. It was sort of weirdly ahead of its time. I think it even came out before a lot of the John Hughes movies, which would later kind of go along with this sort of style. So a little bit more raunchy than some of the John Hughes stuff. And, you know, it kind of borders like the Porky's and Breakfast Clubs. Like somewhere in the middle would be Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Of course, this was a star-making performance for Sean Penn, who kind of plays this burnout stoner surfer dude named Spicoli, and as well as a lot of other actors like Jennifer Jason Leigh and Judge Reinhold. And it's just a really funny, interesting, kind of heartwarming, very truthful teen comedy. It deals with some hard subject matter that you wouldn't see in teen movies nowadays. And I'll be excited to see what else comes out in this Universal Top 100 or 100-year anniversary line, especially that Jaws that'll be coming out in August. I'll be definitely doing a video about that when that comes out, because that's, as you may know, my all-time favorite movie. Alright, and the last two I have here are the only Blu-rays that I've paid full price for, brand new, and I had to have them. So I went out and did it, and one, of course, is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I haven't watched on Blu-ray yet. I still need to pop it in and see how it looks on my big screen. But I loved this movie in theaters. I thought it was great. It might be my favorite of the series, even though the screenplay is pretty pedestrian and borderline dumb at times. Brad Bird, the director, who most famously was a Pixar director before this, he does such a good job with the set pieces and the action and pacing the action and really kind of spacing those scenes out in such a way that he builds this very palpable sense of intensity that none of the other movies really have, except for maybe a scene here or there. This whole movie is just intense, 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 and it's a really satisfying kind of dumb popcorn movie in the best way possible. And proves that, Tom Cruise still has some star power left in him, despite the fact that he's a weirdo and everyone thinks he is. And another movie, completely different, is Shame. And I actually had to kind of hunt this movie down. It's available on Amazon, but I kind of wanted to buy it in person for some reason. Every once in a while, I just don't want to wait for Amazon. But I had to wait until I could go to Best Buy to buy it, because it is an NC-17 movie, and of course your major retail outlets are never going to carry NC-17, including Walmart or Fred Meyer or Shopko or Costco. Any of those, they're never going to carry a movie like this. But Best Buy did. They had one copy when I went there, and I made the clerk search out for it and find it for me. And this is a great movie. It stars Michael Fassbender and Carey Mulligan again from An Education in a much different role. And Michael Fassbender you may know as Magneto in the last X-Men movie, and the British spy from Inglourious Basterds. And this is just a great character study drama. I did a review of this recently for the Video Clerks channel. I can post a link probably here as an annotation if you really want to watch it. And I have my misgivings about the movie. I don't think it's perfect, but I think there's so much good about it. And it's one of those movies that kind of creeps up on you. Right after you see it, you're kind of like, well, I was kind of like, But more and more I thought about it, the more and more I really liked it, and the more I appreciated what Steve McQueen, the director, was doing here. And it's a movie that looks great, looks gorgeous. I kind of tested this on Blu-ray a little bit. I didn't watch it all the way through on Blu-ray, but I tested it, and it looks fantastic. this is a movie you really want to buy on Blu-ray because it's so well shot and so well lit. But yeah, shame. It's a story about a sex addict, and it's NC-17, so you should know that going into it. That's what I bought here in the last month and a half. Of course, there are maybe about 6 or 7 more that I didn't show just to spare you the length of the video, but thanks for watching. If you enjoyed any of these, or if you've seen these movies, or you have anything you want to say about them, put them in the comments below. And I do read all the comments, and I usually even answer back. So do that. Keep an eye out for new Video Clerks reviews. We'll be doing reviews for The Avengers and the 5-year engagement next week, and those reviews will be up as soon as possible then, probably Thursday or so next week. Yeah, talk to you later.